April 17th, 1941, mid-Atlantic, 400 miles south of Iceland, 3:47 in the morning. Commander Nathaniel Hayes stands on the bridge of HMS Sentinel, watching a white wake race toward his ship at 40 knots. Torpedo, 600 yards out, 30 seconds to impact. His destroyer displaces 1,100 tons. The German G7E torpedo carries 617 pounds of hexanite. At this range, evasion is mathematically impossible. The turning radius of his ship, 800 yards. The torpedo will strike amidships in 28 seconds. The first officer's voice cuts through the wind. "Hard to port, sir." Standard doctrine: turn away, present stern, pray. Hayes orders hard to starboard, directly toward the torpedo. The first officer stares at him. Every man on the bridge freezes. In the North Atlantic convoy war, 72% of destroyer captains who engage U-boats die within their first 6 encounters. Hayes has already faced 5. He commands a single destroyer with 1 functional sonar, 12 depth charges, and a crew that hasn't slept in 41 hours. Below the surface, somewhere in 2,000 feet of black water, a U-boat with superior underwater speed waits for the killing blow. Hayes turns into it. The helmsman's hands shake on the wheel. He executes the order anyway. The destroyer's bow swings right, toward certain death. The white wake grows larger, closer, 20 seconds. 15. The first officer closes his eyes. Hayes doesn't. 10 seconds. The wake is a white line cutting the black water. 5 seconds. Hayes can see the disturbance pattern now, the way the water parts around the torpedo's nose. 3 seconds. 2. The torpedo passes 15 feet down Sentinel's starboard side. So close the crew can feel the pressure wave. So close they can hear it, a high-pitched whine cutting through the engine noise. Then it's gone, racing past. Disappearing into the darkness behind them. The bridge erupts, men shouting, laughing, the relief of men who thought they were dead. Hayes's voice cuts through the noise. Silence on the bridge. Instant quiet. The U-boat is reloading. We have 6 minutes. Sonar, find me that contact. But to understand how a man learns to turn toward torpedoes, you need to know what made him different. The image freezes. The white wake. The moment before impact. The impossible decision. Cut to black. 96 minutes earlier. No. Further back than that. Much further. 1911, Plymouth, England, a garden behind a modest house. A boy, 7 years old, sits cross-legged in the grass. Nathaniel Hayes. Nate to his mother, silent to everyone else. He has his father's pocket watch laid on a flat stone. 6 snails arranged in a circle around a lettuce leaf. He's been here for 40 minutes, writing in a small leather notebook with careful, precise letters. His mother finds him as the sun sets. "Nate, what are you doing?" "Testing whether they move faster toward food or away from salt." She looks at his notebook. 2 columns. Expected, actual, times recorded to the second. The boy's handwriting is neater than hers. "And what did you learn?" "What you think will happen and what does happen are usually different." He taps the notebook. "The difference is where you win." He's 7 years old. He talks like this. His mother worries sometimes. But his father, a merchant marine captain who's been at sea more months than home, tells her not to. The boy sees patterns, he says during his last leave before the war. Let him look. Captain Hayes dies at Jutland in 1916. Nate is 11. At the funeral, he doesn't cry. He stands straight in his too small suit, watching the honor guard fold the flag, counting their steps, recording the timing in his mind. His mother asks if he's all right. "I'm learning," he says. September 1918, the Royal Naval College at Dartmouth. Nathaniel Hayes is 13 years old, thin for his age, quiet, watchful. The senior cadets are hazing younger students. Traditional, expected. Part of building character, the instructors say. They hide navigation instruments before practical exams. Sextants, compasses, protractors. The younger students panic, fail, get disciplined. Character building. Hayes doesn't panic. For 2 weeks he watches, follows. Maps where the instruments go. Loose bricks in the east wall. False bottom in the storage locker by the showers. Under floorboards in the third-year dormitory. He creates a retrieval guide, shares it with his class. The senior cadets escalate. The night before final examinations, they steal every first-year navigation instrument. All of them, not hidden, gone, thrown into the harbour, probably. The first years have their test at 0800. Without instruments, they'll fail. Mass failure means mass discipline, possibly expulsion. The senior cadets expect panic. Pleading, maybe someone will report it, that would be even better. Tattling, another character lesson, Hayes doesn't report it. At 0430, while the senior cadets sleep soundly, satisfied with their work, Hayes breaks into the navigation classroom. Picks the lock with a bent fork from the mess hall. Uses the instructor's master instruments to create paper templates, precise measurements. Careful drawings. By 0600 he's taught his entire class to improvise. String for measuring angles, protractors from folded paper, plumb lines from fishing weights and twine. At 0800, the first-year class takes their practical examination with homemade equipment. They score 94% average. The instructors notice. The senior cadets notice. The commandant notices. Hayes expects punishment, theft of instructor materials, unauthorized entry, breaking and entering. Instead, the commandant calls him into his office, an old man, white-haired, scarred from the Boer War. He looks at Hayes for a long time without speaking. Finally, "You improvised?" "Yes, sir." "Good. The Navy needs people who solve problems, not people who report them." He opens Hayes's file, writes 3 lines, shows Hayes. Unconventional solutions, demonstrates initiative under pressure, recommend for operational command. Hayes is 13 years old. June 1925. HMS Revenge, Mediterranean Fleet. Hayes is 20. An ensign. The battleship is conducting night gunnery exercises. Live fire, moving targets, rough seas, 4-foot swells. Hayes has been assigned to Turret B. He's the most junior officer aboard. His job is to observe and stay out of the way. He observes. The loading crew is timing their movements to the ship's roll, waiting for the deck to stabilize before hoisting the shells. Standard procedure, safer. The shells weigh 85 pounds each. A moving deck can cause accidents, but it adds 7 seconds per round. Hayes does the mathematics in his head. 7 seconds times 6 rounds, 42 seconds. In a real engagement, 42 seconds is enough time for an enemy ship to maneuver out of firing solution, enough time to die. He watches the pattern, the roll, the hoist, the timing. He calculates. If they load during the roll, using the ship's momentum to assist the hoist, they can shave 8 seconds, maybe 9. The gun captain is a 19-year veteran, Chief Petty Officer Morrison, face like tanned leather, hands scarred from 3 decades of powder burns. Hayes approaches him after the exercise. "Chief Morrison, I noticed the loading timing." Morrison doesn't look at him. "Did you now, sir?" "No. I calculated that if we load during the roll instead of waiting for stability, we could reduce time by 8 seconds per round." Now Morrison looks at him. "We do it the manual way, Ensign." "The manual was written for calm seas, Chief. We're in 4-foot swells. The manual is wrong here." Silence. The other crew members stop working. A 20-year-old ensign telling a 19-year veteran that the manual is wrong. This could go badly. Morrison stares at Hayes. Hayes stares back. Not defiant, just certain. "One attempt," Morrison says finally. "You're wrong. You swabbed the deck for a week." "Yes, Chief." They try it during the next exercise, load during the roll, use the ship's momentum, compensate for the movement. Hayes has calculated the exact timing. He calls it out. The crew follows. First round, 81 seconds from order to fire. Second round, 79 seconds. Third round, 78 seconds. Turret B fires 7 rounds, while the other turrets fire 6. All 7 hit the target. Morrison doesn't say anything, just nods once. The gunnery officers report. Ensign Hayes, initiative and tactical adaptation, watch for command potential. But potential and command are different things. October 1939, HMS Vagrant, North Atlantic. Hayes is 34 years old. This is his first destroyer command. World War II is 6 weeks old. HMS Vagrant is obsolete. Built in 1917, slow, underarmed, her hull leaks, her sonar works intermittently. The crew calls her the floating coffin, not to Hayes's face, but he knows, he hears things. First mission, escort convoy A-12 60 merchant ships, 8 escorts. The Admiralty projects 15% losses, 9 ships. Acceptable, they say. Third day out, U-53 sinks 2 merchantmen in 4 minutes. Torpedoes from periscope depth, clean kills, both ships gone before they can radio for help. The other escorts respond according to doctrine. Locate the submarine, pursue, attack. They race toward the last known position. Hunting, aggressive, textbook response. Hayes doesn't chase, he studies the plot, the U-boat's last position, the convoy's projected course, the ocean currents, the prevailing wind, the time of day, the captain's psychology. A U-boat captain who just sank 2 ships is feeling confident, aggressive. He'll want another kill, but he has to reload first. 6 minutes minimum, then he'll maneuver to intercept the convoy's forward edge. Maximum targets, maximum chaos. Hayes positions Vagrant between the U-boat's last known position and the convoy's projected course. Not where the submarine is, where it will be. He drops a single depth charge, not to kill, to mark the water, a visible reference point. Then he waits. 40 minutes later, U-53 surfaces 800 yards ahead. The captain thinks the destroyers are chasing him east. He doesn't expect one waiting in front. Hayes's forward gun fires 8 rounds before the U-boat can crash dive. 3 hit the conning tower, the forward deck, the pressure hull. U-53 dives damaged. Hayes pursues. Drops 6 depth charges in a calculated pattern. Oil slick surfaces. Large. Spreading. The U-boat limps back to Lorient with a fractured pressure hull. Never returns to operational status. Convoy HX-12 loses 2 ships instead of the projected 9. Admiral's report requests Hayes's explanation. Hayes writes 3 sentences. "I didn't chase. I thought about where he would go next. I was there first." Admiral Sir Martin Dunbar Nasmyth reads the report, underlines 1 phrase. "Thinks like the enemy." In the margin he writes, "Rare trait, invaluable." Hayes escorts 23 convoys over the next 18 months, encounters U-boats 14 times, sinks 1, damages 3, drives off 10, never loses more than 3 ships in a single convoy. The Admiralty notices. March 1941. Liverpool. Hayes is 36 years old. He's summoned to Admiralty House, given command of HMS Sentinel and appointed senior officer of the 5th Escort Group. The briefing is grim. U-boats are sinking 500,000 tons of shipping per month. Average convoy losses 20%. Admiral Dönitz calls it the happy time. British merchant sailors call it the death run. Hayes has escorted 23 convoys, encountered U-boats 14 times, lost fewer ships than anyone else. The Admiral hands him a folder. "You're different, Commander. You don't think like other destroyer captains." "No, sir." "Good. We need different. The old ways are killing us." That night, alone in his cabin aboard Sentinel, Hayes opens his private notebook. Black leather, water-stained, carried through every convoy. 23 convoys, 14 U-boat contacts, 1 sunk. 3 damaged, 10 driven off. He's recorded every encounter. Times, positions, tactics, outcomes. He's looking for patterns. On the last page, dated 2 weeks earlier, he's written calculations. Turning radius of a destroyer versus approach angle of a torpedo. Profile width at different angles. Probability matrices. One line is underlined twice. If turn away, radius 800 yards. Torpedo from 600 yards equals certain death. If turn into, reduce profile 340 feet to 45 feet. Miss probability 85%. Risk 15%. Acceptable. He hasn't tested this theory. It's mathematical. Theoretical. Insane, probably. But the mathematics are clear. April 14th, 1941. Convoy OB-293 departs Liverpool. 42 merchant ships, 5 escorts. Hayes's Sentinel leads. After 19 hours awake, the Admiralty signals. Intelligence indicates Wolfpack concentration grid, BE-15. Your route, expect contact. Grid BE-15. The Black Pit, where air cover doesn't reach, where U-boats hunt in packs, where convoys die. Hayes studies the chart, calculates. The standard route takes them directly through the concentration. Survival odds, 60%, unacceptable. He alters course 20 degrees north, adds 6 hours to the journey, skirts the Wolfpack center, improves survival odds to 75%. For 2 days, nothing. April 16th, 23:10 hours. The radio operator reports high-frequency direction-finding contacts. Multiple U-boats transmitting on the convoy's flanks. They're coordinating. At least 5 submarines, possibly 8. Doctrine says maintain position, defend the convoy, wait for them to attack. Hayes orders Sentinel and HMS Vanek to sweep ahead. He's not waiting, he's hunting. The first officer questions the order, not insubordinate, just concerned. Sir, if we leave the convoy, we draw them away from it, they'll follow us, easier targets. At 02:30 hours, sonar picks up contact. Submarine, 1,200 yards. Hayes closes. At 600 yards, the U-boat fires. Torpedo in the water, 40 knots. 30 seconds to impact. The first officer's voice, tight with fear. Hard to port, sir. Hayes looks at the white wake, thinks about a 7-year-old boy watching snails. Expected versus actual. The difference is where you win. Thinks about a 13-year-old improvising navigation tools because someone stole the originals. Thinks about a 20-year-old teaching a 19-year veteran that the manual can be wrong. Thinks about a 34-year-old waiting where the enemy will be instead of chasing where he was. Thinks about 2 weeks of calculations in a water-stained notebook. Hard to starboard, Hayes says. Into it. The helmsman executes. The bow swings right. 20 seconds. The first officer grips the railing. Several crew members cross themselves. 15 seconds. Hayes watches the wake, calculating. The angle, the speed, the profile. 10 seconds. Almost there. 5 seconds. Now. The torpedo passes 15 feet down Sentinel's starboard side. The pressure wave rocks the destroyer. Men thrown against bulkheads, but the torpedo is gone. Missing. Racing into empty ocean. Silence on the bridge. Then chaos. Men shouting. The first officer laughing, nearly hysterical. Hayes's voice cuts through it all. Silence. Instant quiet. The U-boat is reloading. We have 6 minutes. Sonar, find me that contact. 30 seconds later. Sonar contact, sir. U-boat has moved 300 yards east, running at 5 knots. Hayes studies the plot. The U-boat is heading under the convoy. Smart. Depth charges there, risk hitting merchant ships. He signals HMS Vanek. Position on convoy's far side. We're going to herd it toward you. The first officer stares at him. Herd it, sir? Like sheep, Hayes says. We don't chase, we guide. Commander Nathaniel Hayes is about to do something no destroyer captain in the Royal Navy has ever done. In the next 96 minutes, he will sink 2 U-boats in a single night using tactics that don't exist in any manual. In the next 4 years, he will personally destroy 8 U-boats, more than any other surface commander in the Atlantic. And he will survive 200 convoy missions because he understands one thing his enemies don't. The moment you become predictable, you're already dead. The Torpedo is gone, disappeared into the black Atlantic. Hayes doesn't celebrate, doesn't acknowledge the relief on his crew's faces. His mind is already 3 moves ahead. Time, he says. Oh, 3:48, sir. The U-boat fired from 600 yards. Standard German torpedo procedure: fire, crash dive, reload, reposition. Reload time for a Type 6C U-boat, 6 minutes minimum. The captain down there is confident now. He fired at point-blank range, expected a kill, didn't get it. He'll be confused, angry, but he'll reload. They always reload. Hayes has 6 minutes to find him and kill him. The problem is mathematics. The U-boat can dive to 600 feet and make 4 knots underwater. In 6 minutes, it could be anywhere within a 400-yard radius. Depth charges have a 30-foot kill radius. Hayes has 12 charges left. The math doesn't work, not for random drops. Sonar, where did we lose him? Contact lost at 300 yards, sir. He went deep and silent. Hayes walks to the chart table, studies the plot, the torpedo's origin point, the convoy's course, the ocean depth here, the currents, the psychology. A U-boat captain who just missed a perfect shot will do one of 3 things: run deep and away, run shallow and circle for another attack, or run under the convoy where depth charges risk hitting friendly ships. This captain is aggressive. He surfaced to firing position, took the shot. He wants another kill. He'll run under the convoy. Return to the torpedo's origin point, Hayes orders. Prepare single depth charge. The first officer looks at him. Sir, if he's anywhere within 400 yards, I'm not trying to hit him. I'm trying to make him move. Sentinel turns, approaches the marked position. Hayes times it, calculates. When they're directly over the estimated position, he gives the order. Drop charge, shallow setting, 200 feet. 1 depth charge rolls off the stern, falls. The crew counts silently. 15 seconds, 20, 25. The explosion is a dull thud. Water geysers 50 feet into the air. 30 seconds later, the sonar operator's voice cracks with excitement. Contact! U-boat has moved 300 yards east, running at 5 knots. Hayes allows himself the smallest smile, predictable. Plot his course. The navigator works quickly. Heading 090, sir, directly under the convoy. Hayes studies the chart. The U-boat is running shallow now, 150 feet. 4 knots, heading for the safety of the merchant ships overhead. Depth charges there could sink a friendly. The U-boat captain knows this, smart. But Hayes is playing a different game. He signals HMS Vanek by lamp, short, precise. Vanek acknowledges, begins moving to the convoy's far side. We're not chasing him, Hayes tells his crew. We're herding him, like sheep. We drive him where we want him to go. Vanek is the fence. He orders Sentinel to parallel the U-boat's course, staying on the convoy side, dropping depth charges ahead of the submarine's projected position, not trying to hit, trying to turn, first charge. The U-boat alters course 5 degrees south, second charge, 10 degrees south, third charge. The U-boat realizes the trap, turns sharply south, away from the convoy, diving deeper, 300 feet, 350, 400. Hayes watches the sonar track. The submarine is going deep, below the effective range of standard Type D depth charges, maximum depth 350 feet. But Hayes has been preparing for this. "Break out the experimental charges, WWII," he orders. The weapons officer hesitates. "Sir, those are Type E and never been used in combat. Settings are theoretical. Theoretical based on sound engineering, set them for 450 feet. Sir, do it. 2 Type E depth charges, designed for deep diving U-boats, tested in calm water against derelict hulls, never against a live target, never in combat conditions. The pressure settings could be wrong. They might not detonate. They might detonate early and damage Sentinel. Hayes has done the calculations. The risk is acceptable. Drop charges, both. 450 feet on my mark." No, the sonar operator calls out bearings. Hayes times the approach. Imagines the U-boat captain down there, deep, thinking he's safe, below the range of British depth charges, slowing down to conserve battery, breathing easier. "Mark." 2 charges roll off the stern. Heavy, experimental. They fall through the black water, down, down. The crew counts. 30 seconds, 40, 45. Silence. The first officer opens his mouth to speak. 2 explosions, deep, muffled, felt more than heard. The ocean shudders. Sentinel's deck vibrates. Silence again, longer this time. Then debris, floating to the surface. Wood splinters, oil, spreading dark across the water. Pieces of things that were inside a submarine. The sonar operator's voice is quiet. "Contact loss, sir. No propeller noise, no movement." Hayes nods. "Mark the position. Continue search pattern. 1 U-boat dead." But the night isn't finished. 0418, 31 minutes after the first torpedo. Sonar picks up another contact. This one is different. Faster, running on the surface. 17 knots. Hayes checks the plot. The new U-boat is heading directly for the convoy. Already has a firing solution on 6 merchant ships. If Hayes pursues directly, the submarine reaches firing range in 8 minutes. Sentinel intercepts in 9. 1 minute too late. 6 ships dead. Unacceptable. Hayes doesn't pursue directly. He changes course 15 degrees, not intercepting the U-boat, intercepting its firing angle, putting Sentinel between the submarine and the convoy, blocking the shot. The U-boat captain realizes it. Forced to submerge, loses his speed advantage. Surface speed 17 knots, submerge speed 4 knots. Sonar tracks him 150 feet, 4 knots. Heading directly under Sentinel, the first officer sees it. "Sir, he's using us as cover. If we drop charges now, we're directly above the blast." Hayes knows. The U-boat captain is smart. Young, probably. Well-trained. Using British doctrine against them. A destroyer won't depth charge its own position. Too dangerous. So run under the destroyer. Wait for it to pass. Then surface and attack. Textbook. Hayes has stopped following textbooks. "All engines full reverse," he orders. The first officer stares. "Sir?" "Full reverse. Now." The engine room responds. The destroyer shudders, slows, stops, begins backing up, moving in reverse toward the submarine. The crew doesn't understand. Moving backward brings them closer to the U-boat, closer to the blast radius. This is suicide. Hayes watches the sonar plot. The U-boat is passing beneath them, moving forward while Sentinel moves backward. The geometry is perfect. They're closing at 8 knots, combined speed, range 200 yards, 150, 100. Prepare depth charge pattern, 4 charges, tight spacing, minimum depth. "Sir, at this range," I know, drop on my mark." The U-boat is directly beneath them now. 50 yards astern and closing. The captain down there probably realizes something is wrong. The destroyer above him is moving, not forward, backward, toward him. He's trying to dive deeper, but it takes time. The hydroplanes need water flow. At 4 knots, it's slow. Too slow. Mark! 4 depth charges drop. Tight pattern, minimum depth, 100 feet. They fall for 3 seconds. 4, 5. The explosions are massive. So close the ocean lifts Sentinel's stern clear out of the water. Men thrown forward, deck plating buckles. The first officer hits the bulkhead. Blood from his forehead. The helmsman loses his grip, spins the wheel. Hayes holds the railing, stays standing, watches. The sonar is useless. Too much noise, too much turbulence, but he doesn't need sonar. 300 yards off the port side, the ocean erupts. The U-boat surfaces, not by choice, bow first. 30-degree angle. Water sheets off the conning tower. The submarine hangs there, vertical, pointing at the sky like some massive steel fish. 5 seconds. Hayes doesn't waste them. Forward guns, fire. The 4-inch guns are already trained. The crews are ready. They fire 6 rounds in 9 seconds. At 300 yards, they can't miss. 2 rounds hit the conning tower. Metal shreds. 1 round penetrates the pressure hull. Below the waterline, catastrophic. The U-boat slides backward. Stern first. The bow that was pointing at the sky now crashes down. Water pours into the ruptured hull. The submarine is flooding, dying. 40 seconds from surface to gone. The ocean swallows it, just bubbles now. Oil, debris, men surfacing. Hayes sees them. 18, maybe 20, thrashing in 38-degree water. Hypothermia will kill them in 10 minutes, drowning before that if they're wearing heavy clothes. He orders stop engines. The crew throws lines without being told. They pull survivors from the water. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the enemy. German sailors, U-boat crew, men who were trying to kill them 5 minutes ago, men who have torpedoed merchant ships, killed British sailors, but they're men, drowning. Hayes's crew pulls them aboard. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The radio operator's voice cuts through the rescue effort. Sir, sonar contact. New U-boat, 1,800 yards, closing fast. Hayes looks at the water. 7 men still out there, arms waving, voices calling in German, weak, dying. He looks at the sonar plot, new contact. Coming in, this U-boat knows what happened, knows Sentinel is stationary. Vulnerable, easy target. Mathematics again, always mathematics. 7 men in the water will die in 6 minutes. Convoy, 42 ships, 1,400 people. Sentinel, 180 crew, 7 versus 1,600. The equation is simple. The decision is simple. Hayes feels nothing simple about it. Signal HMS Vanek. Retrieve remaining survivors. His voice is steady. Command voice. Emotionless. Helm, all ahead full. Come to heading 270. Engage new contact. Sentinel's engines roar. The destroyer surges forward, turning away from the 7 men in the water. Hayes watches them as the ship turns. 1 man is waving, not frantically, just waving, almost gentle, like goodbye, like he understands. The first officer, blood still running from his forehead, stands beside Hayes, doesn't say anything, doesn't need to. Hayes will write about this later. In his notebook, in the private pages he shows no one. 11 saved, 7 drowned, mathematically correct, morally uncertain. But later is later, now is now. The new U-boat is diving, running deep, the wolf pack is withdrawing. They've lost 2 boats in 90 minutes. They're regrouping, reassessing. Hayes pursues for 20 minutes. The U-boat stays deep, fast, running for the continental shelf where the water shallows and they can hide in thermal layers. At 0510, the sonar contact fades. Gone. Hayes orders return to convoy. Convoy OB293 continues northeast. All 42 merchant ships, intact, undamaged. 1,400 men who don't know how close they came to dying. 2 U-boats sunk in 83 minutes. 0 friendly losses. The night is over. Dawn is coming. Grey light on the eastern horizon. Hayes stays on the bridge. He's been awake 52 hours. His eyes burn. His hands shake slightly when he thinks no one is looking. But the convoy is still in the danger zone, still in the black pit, still vulnerable. At 11:30 in the morning, 6 hours after the last contact, the convoy clears grid BE-15. Air cover arrives. 2 Sunderland flying boats. The U-boats won't attack now. Too risky. Hayes is relieved, goes to his cabin, sits on his bunk, pulls out his notebook. The leather is water-stained. The pages are filled with his careful handwriting, times, positions, calculations, observations. He opens to a blank page, writes the date, April 17th, 1941, 03:47 to 05:10. Then he writes, turned into first torpedo, worked, notebook calculations correct, 15% risk acceptable when alternative is 100% loss. Will use again if necessary. He pauses, the pen hovers over the paper. First kill, herding tactic effective. Type E charges functional at 450 feet. U-boat went exactly where predicted. Another pause. Longer. Second kill, reverse approach successful. Close range pattern causes extreme stress to friendly vessel. Stern plating damaged. 3 crew injuries. Acceptable given alternative. He stops writing, stares at the page, picks up the pen again. Survivor count, 11 recovered, 7 lost. The pen stays there. He wants to write more, wants to explain, justify, but there's nothing to explain, nothing to justify. The mathematics were clear, the decision was correct. He writes one more line, I still see those 7 men. Then he closes the notebook, lies down on his bunk, still wearing his uniform, still wearing his boots, salt-crusted, blood-stained, from helping pull survivors aboard. He closes his eyes, tries to sleep. He dreams of 7 men waving in black water. He dreams of white wakes racing toward his ship. He dreams of a 7-year-old boy watching snails, learning that what you expect and what happens are usually different. The difference is where you win, but winning has a price. Commander Nathaniel Hayes has just rewritten naval doctrine. In 6 weeks, his tactic of turning into torpedoes will be taught at every anti-submarine warfare school in the Royal Navy. In 3 months, it will save 14 destroyers. In 4 years, he will sink 8 U-boats, more than any surface commander in the Atlantic. But tonight, in his dreams, he still sees 7 men. Some mathematics don't add up to sleep. April 18th, 1941. Dawn breaks over convoy OB-293. The Admiralty signal arrives at 1400 hours. Confirm double kill. Details required. Hayes writes his report. 3 pages, minute by minute. Torpedo bearing 090, range 600 yards, speed 40 knots, decision to turn into threat. Mathematical justification. First U-boat sunk via herding tactic and experimental Type E charges at 450 feet. Second U-boat sunk via reverse approach and close-range pattern. 11 survivors recovered, 7 lost to tactical necessity. He doesn't mention the dreams. The report reaches Admiralty House within 36 hours. Within 48 hours, the story spreads through the fleet. The commander who turned into a torpedo, the madman who backed his destroyer toward a submarine, the tactician who sank 2 U-boats in one night. Within 6 weeks, Hayes's turn into tactic is being taught at the Anti-Submarine Warfare School in Liverpool. Instructors use his report as a case study. They diagram the geometry, show the mathematics, explain how reducing profile from 340 feet to 45 feet increases survival probability from 0 to 85%. They call it the Hayes maneuver. Within 3 months, it saves 14 destroyers. Captains who would have turned away now turn toward. The torpedoes miss, the destroyers live. The U-boat captains start to adjust. Nothing stays effective forever. But for those 3 months, Hayes has changed the mathematics of survival. The Distinguished Service Order arrives in May, presented by the Admiral himself aboard HMS Sentinel. The crew musters on deck. The citation is read aloud. For exceptional courage and tactical innovation in action against enemy submarines. Commander Hayes demonstrated extraordinary leadership under fire, achieving unprecedented results through unconventional methods. Hayes stands at attention, accepts the medal, says nothing. The crew cheers. He doesn't acknowledge it, just salutes the Admiral and returns to his cabin. That night, he writes in his notebook. Recognized for night of 17th April, citation mentions courage. It wasn't courage, it was mathematics. They're teaching the tactic now. Good, more ships will survive. But they're calling it brave. It wasn't brave, it was the only option that made sense. He pauses, writes one more line. Still seeing the 7 men every night. The story spreads beyond the Royal Navy, into German naval intelligence, into the reports that reach Admiral Karl Dönitz at U-boat headquarters in Lorient. Dönitz reads the reports. British destroyer commander. Unconventional tactics. Does not follow doctrine. 2. Type 5 IIC boats lost in single engagement. Both experienced captains, both sunk in less than 90 minutes. Dönitz underlines the name. Commander Nathaniel Hayes, HMS Sentinel. He issues orders to 3 of his best captains, U-96, Kapitän Leutnant Heinrich Lehmann Willenbrock. 25 ships sunk, known for aggressive tactics and perfect shooting. U-552, Kapitän Leutnant Erich Topp, the Red Devil. 18 ships sunk. Specialist in convoy attacks, U-333, Kapitän Leutnant Peter Kremer. 16 ships sunk. Expert in ambush tactics. The orders are simple. Hunt HMS Sentinel. Sink her. Kill Commander Hayes. High priority target. Hayes learns about it in May from Naval Intelligence. The briefing is classified. The intelligence officer is apologetic. Sir, we've intercepted communications. German U-boat command has designated you as a priority threat. They're assigning assets specifically to hunt Sentinel. Hayes reads the brief. 3 boats, experienced captains, hunting him. The intelligence officer expects fear, concern, a request for additional escort. Hayes hands the brief back. Good, he says. Makes them predictable. The intelligence officer doesn't understand. Hayes explains. They're hunting me instead of the convoy. That means I know where to find them. They're no longer random contacts. They're concentrated, predictable. That's an advantage. Sir, they're the best Germany has. Then I'll know exactly what the best looks like when I sink them. It's not bravado, it's assessment. The U-boats hunting him will be aggressive, will take risks, will break their own doctrine to get him. That makes them vulnerable. Predictability is death, even for the best. Hayes requests command of the most experienced escort group. Gets it. New flagship, HMS Aurora. Upgraded sonar, double-depth charge capacity. Crew of veterans who've survived multiple convoy runs. His private journal that night contains one entry. They're hunting me now. 3 boats. Best captains Germany has. They think it's an advantage. It isn't. Now I know where they'll be. The hunter becomes the prey. The prey becomes the hunter. Pattern recognized. Then, under that, 11 saved, 7 drowned. War is arithmetic with ghosts. December 1941. 7 months after the night that made him famous. Convoy H.G. Septin Desmit, Sechi. 32 merchant ships from Gibraltar to Liverpool. Intelligence warns that 12 U-boats are positioned along the route, the largest concentration Hayes has faced. Among them, the 3 boats hunting him. December 17th, 0200 hours, 400 miles west of Portugal. The Wolfpack attacks. U-574 sinks a merchant ship in 4 minutes. Torpedo amidships. The ship breaks in half, gone in 90 seconds. Crew of 40. 3 survivors. U-131 torpedoes another. This one stays afloat longer, burning. Men jumping into the water. The flames light up the night. Then 8 U-boats surface simultaneously. Coordinated assault. Multiple targets. The largest surface attack of the war so far. Doctrine says, defend the convoy center. Form a protective ring. Wait for them to come to you. Hayes ignores doctrine. Signal all escorts. Form 3 hunter-killer teams. We're attacking. His second-in-command, a career officer named Phillips, who's been with Hayes for 5 months, doesn't question it, just executes. Hayes personally leads Aurora after U-131, the boat that just sank the burning merchantman, the boat whose crew is still in the water, screaming. Sonar tracks U-131 to 400 feet, standard depth for evasion. The captain thinks he's safe. Deep enough to avoid most depth charges, fast enough to outrun pursuit. Hayes has spent 7 months perfecting the tactic he used in April. Prepare diamond pattern, 8 charges, overlapping shock waves. Diamond pattern, his innovation, charges dropped in a diamond shape. The explosions create overlapping pressure waves, triple the kill radius, nowhere to hide. He drops all 8 at once. The ocean convulses, 8 massive explosions. The shock wave is felt on ships 5 miles away. Water geysers 200 feet into the air. U-131 surfaces damaged. Flooding. The captain orders abandon ship. Aurora's guns fire 12 hits in 40 seconds, not trying to kill the crew, trying to make sure the submarine sinks fast, trying to deny intelligence, trying to make a statement. The U-boat slides under in 90 seconds. Aurora recovers 24 survivors, Germans soaked, shaking, some wounded. Hayes's crew pulls them aboard, gives them blankets, hot tea, medical attention. Hayes doesn't watch. He's already returning to the battle. By dawn on December 18th, the escort group has sunk 4 U-boats, U-131, U-574, U-434, U-567, all confirmed kills, all within 6 hours. 3 more U-boats are damaged, including U-96. Lehman Willenbrock, the ace who was hunting Hayes, takes damage from a depth charge pattern, limps back to Lorient, never returns to full operational status. The convoy loses 2 ships, 2 out of 32. Intelligence predicted 12 losses, 60% casualty rate. Hayes delivers 6%. Most successful convoy defense of the war. The Distinguished Service Cross arrives in January 1942. The citation reads, "Relentless pursuit of the enemy with complete disregard for personal safety." Hayes reads it, hands it to Phillips. "It wasn't disregard," he says. "It was calculated risk. There's a difference." "Sir? Disregard means you don't care about the outcome. Risk means you've measured it, weighed it, accepted it. I cared about the outcome. I just accepted the risk." Phillips doesn't fully understand, but he files the comment in his log. Years later, when he writes his own memoir, he'll remember it. The war continues. 1942, 43, 44, 45. Hayes runs 200 convoy missions. 200. Through the Black Pit, through winter storms, through Wolfpack concentrations, through what the merchant sailors call the Valley of Death. He sinks 6 more U-boats. 6. Confirmed kills, debris, survivors, oil slicks photographed, bodies recovered. Total 8 U-boats destroyed, 14 more damaged, record unmatched by any surface commander in the Atlantic. And the number that defines him more than any other, 0 ships lost under his direct command. Not one, not in 200 missions. The mathematics are perfect. The results are undeniable. But mathematics don't account for nightmares. May 1945. The war in Europe ends. Germany surrenders. The U-boats surface. The killing stops. Hayes is 40 years old. He's spent 6 years at sea, 6 years running convoys, 6 years hunting submarines. 6 years not drowning. The Navy offers him promotion, command of a cruiser in the Mediterranean, peacetime posting, prestigious career advancement. Everything an officer could want. Hayes declines. The admiral is surprised, confused, concerned. Commander Hayes, you're at the peak of your career. This posting could lead to flag rank. I understand, sir. Then why refuse? Hayes is quiet for a long moment, looking at something the admiral can't see. Something in the middle distance, something in the past. I've spent 6 years trying not to drown, sir. I'd like some time on land. You've earned rest. Take leave, then reconsider. It's not rest I need, sir, it's distance. The admiral doesn't push. He's read Hayes's record. 200 missions, 8 kills, 0 losses. He's also read the private reports, the ones from the medical officers, sleeplessness, nightmares, weight loss, the signs of a man who's seen too much, done too much, carried too much. Hayes is assigned to shore duty, tactical division at Admiralty House, analyzing anti-submarine data, writing training manuals, reviewing after-action reports, lecturing at the Naval War College. He's good at it, brilliant even. His manuals become standard texts. His lectures are attended by every senior officer in the fleet. But he's teaching people to do what he no longer wants to do himself. 1947. Hayes resigns his commission. Age 42. 28 years of service. He could stay, could retire with full pension at 20, could become an admiral if he wanted. He doesn't want. He buys a small house in Dorset. Overlooks the sea, but far enough from the harbour that he can't smell it, can't hear the ships. He starts writing. 1954. U-Boat Killer is published, becomes a bestseller immediately. Not because it glorifies war, because it doesn't. Hayes writes about fear, about exhaustion, about the mathematics of survival, about making decisions when every option is terrible and you choose the least terrible one. He writes about the 7 men. Chapter 11. The Decision. 6 pages describing the moment he turned Aurora away from 7 drowning Germans to engage a new U-boat contact. 6 pages explaining the mathematics. 7 versus 1600. The equation was simple. The last paragraph of that chapter. The equation was simple. The decision was correct. I would make it again in the same circumstances, but I still see those 7 men every night. Mathematics can justify a decision. They cannot erase it. The book sells 100,000 copies in the first year. It's translated into 6 languages. It's taught at naval academies. It's controversial. Some reviewers praise its honesty. Others criticize its bleakness. Hayes doesn't care about reviews. He wrote the book for one reason: to explain that the men who came home weren't necessarily the bravest, just the ones who calculated correctly. He writes 3 more books, none as successful as the first, but each one stripping away another layer of the mythology. The heroic commander, the fearless U-boat killer, the man who turned toward death. By the 3rd book, he's down to the truth. A man who was good at mathematics and lucky enough to survive them. One habit never fades. Every morning, before dawn, Hayes sits at his desk and writes in his notebook. Same leather notebook he carried through the war. Water-stained, blood-stained in places, the binding is falling apart. He records one observation, one thing he noticed that day, something unexpected, something different. A journalist asks him about it in 1970. Hayes is 65, still writing every morning. Why do you still keep the notebook? Hayes doesn't look up from his writing, because the moment you stop noticing what's different is the moment you become predictable, and predictable people don't last long. The war is over, Commander. Now Hayes looks up. War is over, competition isn't, life isn't. The principles don't change. Stay alert. Notice patterns. Don't become predictable. same rules. Different battlefield, 1976, 5 years before his death. A young naval officer visits Hayes for a thesis interview. The officer is 26, earnest, nervous, asking questions about doctrine and tactics and decision-making. Finally, the question Hayes has been waiting for. "Sir, how did you decide when to follow doctrine and when to break it?" Hayes thinks for a long time. Looking out the window at the sea he can't smell from here, the sea he spent 6 years crossing, the sea that holds the wrecks of 8 U-boats and the bodies of 7 men he couldn't save. Doctrine is someone else's solution to a problem they faced in the past. If you're facing the same problem in the same conditions, use doctrine. It works, that's why it became doctrine. But if anything is different, technology, tactics, context, the enemy's capabilities, then doctrine is just expensive nostalgia. You have to think new. How do you know when to think new? Hayes smiles. Small, sad. When following the rules is killing you, that's usually a good sign. The young officer writes it down. Word for word, his thesis will quote that line. Years later, when he's a captain himself, he'll remember it. He'll use it, he'll teach it to his own officers. Hayes dies on July 17, 1981. At home in Dorset, in his sleep, heart failure. He's 76 years old. They bury him at Wimborne Road Cemetery, Section E grave 142, military honours, honour guard, flag folding. The ceremony is attended by 47 former crew members, men he saved by being unpredictable, men who lived because he calculated correctly. The headstone is simple, black granite, 3 lines. Commander Nathaniel Hayes, DSO, DSC, 1904 to 1981, he faced them head-on. 3 ships are named after him. HMS Hayes in 1983, HMCS Hayes in 1995, RV Nathaniel Hayes in 2003. The Royal Navy Submarine Museum creates an exhibit. The U-boat killer, Commander Nathaniel Hayes and the Battle of the Atlantic. His personal notebook is displayed in a glass case. Open to page 47. April 17, 1941. The entry visible to visitors, turned into Torpedo, worked. Will try again if necessary. What they can't see is the entry on the facing page. Written later that same day, 11 saved, 7 drowned, I still see those 7 men. The last page of the notebook is also displayed, written 1 day before his death, July 16, 1981. Noticed robins nesting later this year? Climate changing? Worth tracking. To the very end he was watching, noticing, looking for patterns, looking for what was different, staying unpredictable. The story of Nathaniel Hayes isn't about torpedoes or U-boats or the North Atlantic. It's about the decision every person faces when the old rules stop working. When the manual is wrong, when following doctrine means death, do you follow the rules anyway, because they're familiar, because they're safe, because everyone else is following them? Or do you face the problem head-on and solve it yourself? Hayes turned toward the torpedo, backed his ship toward a submarine, hunted when doctrine said defend, attacked when doctrine said wait, broke every rule that needed breaking, and in doing so saved thousands of lives, but he paid for it every night, in dreams of 7 men waving in black water. Some victories don't feel like winning. Some mathematics don't add up to peace. But Hayes understood something most people never learn. The greatest danger isn't the torpedo racing towards you at 40 knots. It's the comfort of doing what you've always done. The safety of following the manual. The predictability of doctrine. The moment you stop adapting, you're dead. You just don't know it yet. Commander Nathaniel Hayes knew it. Learned it watching snails when he was 7, proved it improvising navigation tools when he was 13, demonstrated it sinking 8 U-boats when doctrine said it couldn't be done. He faced them head-on. Some things you never stop doing. Even after the war ends. Even after the enemy surrenders, even after the torpedoes stop coming, you keep watching, keep calculating, keep looking for what's different. Because the moment you become predictable is the moment you die. Hayes never became predictable, and he never stopped seeing those 7 men. Both things are true. Both things matter. That's the price of being different, of breaking rules, of surviving when others don't. You win, but you carry the weight of winning forever.